Hello, everyone. The new year is upon us, and we look ahead to 2026 and discuss what albums might be released. There are quite a few that I think are likely to happen that I want to talk about, and I'm going to rank them in terms of excitement, but also a little bit in terms of potentiality, but largely based on my own personal anticipation. And then, of course, I will go over a couple other artists that I do think are either due or have already basically explicitly said that they will be releasing this coming year. And then I want to talk about one particular artist who I think deserves a little bit of their kind of own chapter in this discussion, because they're an artist that has featured every single year without fail in these videos, who always ends up not releasing. And there were events that occurred this past year that I think need to be taken into account when discussing the future of this artist. And spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking about Enya. So I will tack that on towards the end of this video for Enya fans who want to hear my thoughts on where Enya might be heading and is she going to release a new album ever again. And then lastly, I felt I needed to say this at the beginning of the video for anyone who might be caught unawares. I will be discussing the 2026 Eurovision Song Contest. And more importantly, I will be discussing my involvement or lack thereof moving forward with the contest in terms of coverage on this channel. So if you're interested, that's going to be at the very end of the video. If you're not, I'll let you know when that's coming up. Because I know my channel's, a bit Eurovision, but also a bit not. So I don't usually talk about Eurovision in these in these beginning of the year prediction videos. But based on recent events, there is a lot I feel I needed to say. I was debating making it a separate video, but then I thought I'll just tack it onto this one. So before we get into my 15 albums that I am most anticipating for 2026, a few things. First of all, we have some confirmed releases, and one of them is on my list, so I'm not going to mention that one. But the others that are confirmed for this month in January, we do have Agnes releasing her album Beautiful Madness. I am extremely excited to hear that. Agnes is a Swedish dance pop artist who has been in the game for quite a while, and this is her first album since 2021. Madison Beer is putting out an album this month, Locket. We also have, in February, quite a few. We have Mumford & Sons are coming back less than a year after their last record in 2025 with Prize Fighter this February. I don't cover Mumford & Sons on this channel, but I am aware and follow their music. So thought I'd give that a shout out. But then on the 23rd, we've got two big album releases. Hilary Duff is coming back, and I will talk about that in a minute when I get to my anticipated albums countdown. But also Leanne Pinnock, who is kind of the third Little Mix X member who hasn't released a debut album. I mean, Jessie Nelson hasn't technically either, but at this point, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And if it were to, I don't think there's much anticipation or hype for it. So I'm excited for Leanne. She goes by Leanne as her stage name. So my ego told me to. I'm hoping will follow wonderfully on the heels of That's Showbiz Baby and Perry from last year. Moving into March, I believe Charlie Puth is releasing in March. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's March and not April. And then we also have a Meghan Trainor album on the calendar for April. That's the furthest out I think that we have. Also in February, as far as soundtracks, we do have Charlie XCX is making an album for the Emerald Fennell Wuthering Heights movie, which is going to be a whole heap of discussion and discourse on its own that I don't want to get into in this video because that's a whole other thing. But Charlie is going to try and soundtrack that film. I'm not 100% sure she's the right fit, and yet at the same time for Emerald Fennell, I would say, yeah, she probably is. I have watched Saltburn, so I know what Emerald Fennell is capable of. But for Wuthering Heights, I would prefer someone like Florence and the Machine. or Birdie, but they're not mainstream enough, I suppose. So that'll be interesting to see. As far as Charlie is concerned, I don't necessarily see another Charlie album coming out next year. I think that Wuthering Heights will probably be it, on maybe the fact that, although maybe she might end up putting out another standalone single for something, perhaps something for another soundtrack. I could see her doing something for The Devil Wears Prada 2. Speaking of upcoming movie soundtracks, I am very curious what artists might be featured on a big soundtrack. I mean, the first movie did have, if I'm not mistaken, a sort of songs inspired by soundtrack, but that's become something that's very popular these days. It's always been popular. I mean, Legally Blonde had one. I mean, it's for these sort of, I mean, Barbie had one. I assume that The Devil Wears Prada 2 will have like a Barbie level accompanying soundtrack with songs that are either featured in the film or written for the film in spirit, but maybe only play briefly in the credits, or just are written as, like, for the F1 soundtrack. I don't know if all of those songs were actually in the movie. They were just written to make a companion album for the movie to hype it up. So the Devil Wears Prada soundtrack maybe could have a Charlie song on it. Other artists I would maybe anticipate seeing on there would be like Tuva Lo. I could see, Lady Gaga doing something. As a matter of fact, I think Lady Gaga might be the most likely song she may end up putting out, or new music she may end up putting out, would be for that. I know I might as well just talk about it here. I know some people are getting excited thinking Lady Gaga is going to give us another record next year. I'm not so sure. I think that Lady Gaga, she takes a little bit of time, and I don't think she's gonna, come off of Mayhem and Harlequin quite so quickly. There's a chance that maybe by the end of the year, it's sort of hard to predict albums that are going to be like a year from now. It's easier to sort of predict the first 6 months because a lot can change. So maybe by the end of the year, but I would not expect anything this winter, spring. Like I said, maybe a new song for Devil Wears Prada 2. Now let's just get it out of the way. Who are some artists that I do not think are going to be releasing this year? There are a lot of our familiar suspects. Now, I might be wrong, and I will eat my words, but I'm losing a lot of faith in most of them. I do not believe Rihanna is coming back next year. Maybe, again, maybe with a standalone single, maybe this time not attached to a soundtrack. I could see her doing a collab with someone, like a really big, like that, Wild Thoughts collab she did with Bryson Tiller and DJ Khaled back in the day. I could see Rihanna coming back like that, but I don't necessarily see her coming back for an album just yet. Now, never say never. I don't think Rihanna may fully give up. And there's also been some rumors that at the end of this month, she's going to put out some sort of anti-deluxe deluxe for a commemoration of the 10-year anniversary of that record. Definitely think that that's slightly more likely, but I don't think that that's that likely to happen. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past her. Taylor Swift. I think that Taylor, it's pretty safe to say, is probably going to take 2026 off for releasing an entirely new record, considering we just got Showgirl. However, I wouldn't put it past her, and I do think it's definitely maybe a 50% chance of happening at worst, that in sometime in the late summer, early fall, or late fall, we may get a debut 20th anniversary re-release. Either Taylor's version with re-recorded songs from the entire record, or just the original album with the vault songs that I know she has already recorded. Taylor obviously gained ownership of all of her masters last year, so Debut and Reputation's future are now very much not as, as far as re-releases, Taylor's version. They're not nearly as set in stone to happen, particularly Reputation, because she revealed she hadn't actually recorded a lot of it at that point. So I don't think Reputation may ever get a re-release in terms of re-recorded vocals. But I mean, again, she may do in both 2026 and 2027, respectively, 20 and 10-year anniversary releases with the vault songs, or at least some extra deluxe songs that come along with that. So I would say that's definitely a possibility. But as far as an entirely new record, I do not believe so. Again, maybe she'll drop a soundtrack song. I could see her maybe being on the Hunger Games movie soundtrack. She was on the first one, and I'm seeing a lot of hype for Sunrise on the Reaping. Maybe it's just more personally what I would like to see. I'd love Taylor to write a song for that movie. I kind of wondered if she was going to do it for Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, but I'm wondering about this upcoming Hunger Games movie. Me wonders. Adele. I mean, I would say there's a slightly higher chance than Rihanna for an Adele return in 2026, but I'm still not feeling very confident. My spidey senses are still saying that Adele is comfortably still in that stage of like, maybe I might even consider going into a studio for the first time in 5 years. Like maybe she starts working on the record, or maybe she did start working on it this past year. But something tells me that if she is working on an album, it's still in the early stages. Based on what Adele has said, I don't think she's in any hurry to put out her 5th studio album. Enigma is an artist I would really, really love to more sincerely predict. But unfortunately, I'm, year after year getting more and more worried that it may come, but it may still be a bit yet, or he may have entirely retired. The sources that, point either direction are, out there. And it's just like, I don't know, you got to just sort of see what you want to believe. I wish that Michael Cretu was a little bit more active on social media, similarly to a certain Irish pop star. I guess pop star is a bit of it's not a misnomer, but, a very famous Irish musician who I'll be discussing later in this video. I wish these artists would be a little bit more forthcoming about where they are in their creative process and in their careers, instead of just going radio silent for the better part of a decade usually sometimes. But that's what happens when some of these stars get older. The same reason I don't think Kate Bush is ever coming back. I mean, I don't know. It's been 15 years. It'll be 15 years. I don't know if Kate Bush is ever going to put out a new entirely original album either. But, I guess stranger things may have happened. So I think those are I do want to talk about Grimes, because I didn't end up putting Grimes on my anticipated list, mainly because she's been on it every year. And, it's been 5 years, well, actually almost 6 years since her last album in 2020. And Grimes has also been just so wrapped up in personal drama. She did put out a very interesting, scatterbrained as usual podcast episode with this one creator, and it was an interesting listen. She definitely did confirm that, she is working on an album, but I just don't know how much I trust her these days. I mean, book one, the streets remember book one. And at this point, we know book one isn't coming out. We know it's been scrapped. We know she started over. She released a song last year called Artificial Angels, which was fine. I mean, it was clearly a very provocative song, especially when you look at its music video. But it didn't have the feeling of a lead single to me. I don't know if Grimes was talking about it in a way that made me feel confident that it wasn't just a one-off. But we'll see. I think that we will probably get new music from her, either in the form of a collab or at least in more singles. But I'm still not feeling fully confident that Grimes is there yet. I do think we will get another album from her at some point. It might be the last one for quite a while. But Claire Boucher, she's not completely over, but I do think that her career is just completely in free fall. And I don't know I don't know. It's very difficult I just wish she hadn't gotten embroiled with Elon Musk. I think it just completely destroyed everything about her career. She says she's got her creative spark back now that she's no longer with him, but I just don't fully trust it. And speaking of someone who also fell from grace, who's been doing this for quite some time, but this year it was fully cemented, particularly at the end of the year, we do have to talk about Nicki Minaj. Nicki tweeted that she was going to put out an album on a specific date in March back in September, which in true Nicki Minaj fashion was, I believe, the week after Cardi B released her highly anticipated sophomore album. Yes, Nikki, we get it. You only come out of the woodwork when you think Cardi's going to come out and do something. It's getting exhausting. But that's the least of our gripes with Nikki at this point. Nikki has gone full MAGA at this point. Her appearing at that Charlie Kirk Memorial Turning Point USA convention, jerk fest was just, and the words that she said. I mean, look, you can be a Trump supporter. Do you really have to go out of your way to call Donald Trump handsome? 79-year-old, swollen ankled, orange caked, spray fake tanned, what the heck is that? Why did we have to do that? We didn't have to do all that. I think that Nikki, unfortunately, has some legal issues that are her own making due to her choice in husband that are causing her to chum up with this administration in the hopes of getting a pardon for her sex offender husband. And I think that Nikki's career has gone downhill ever since she really got entangled with him, which was around the Queen era. And if you look at the track record of her politics, her social media, her beefing with female rap stars, I mean, it's been so incessant and obsessive. It's very deranged. That alone, her beef with Megan Thee Stallion was already cancelable alone based on how ugly that got, how racist and disgusting that argument got, especially when Nikki was the one trying to defend having a sex offender husband. What the heck is going on? But then also the way that Nikki and Cardi, Nikki went after Cardi's children, and it just got really ugly last fall. I mean, at the end of the day, Cardi B was never really my cup of tea musically. I loved her politics, didn't really love, the music as much. Nicki Minaj, her first 3 albums went platinum in this household. I have a really hard time getting rid of them off my phone. In fact, I probably never will because I just, God damn it, I can't do it. There's too much. I don't want to completely, I just can't do it. I'm sorry. I totally respect and understand those of you who do. But for me, I really have a hard time stomaching the idea of a Nicki Minaj album, especially so soon after all this controversy. And if she were to drop an album in March, it would be kind of unprecedented for Nicki to do so without having a lead single that's at least like 8 months before the album drop. Nicki has almost never done that, as she has always very much teased an album with singles way in advance, sometimes over a year in advance. So we still don't have a lead single. I don't know, is it a surprise drop? Well, it's not a surprise drop if you tweeted the date. I don't think that date is holding anymore, as it was with Pink Friday 2. It will get delayed, maybe even never come out. I don't know. But I hope she doesn't call it Pink Friday 3. Goodness gracious, girl. We've got to get more creative than that. But at the end of the day, that's the least of her problems. All right, so let's get into the 15 artists that I am most anticipating will release new music in 2026. Starting out with Olivia Rodrigo. I don't think it's any small secret that Olivia is cooking up OR3. She recently, as I believe of yesterday, made some sort of social media website promo thing talking about the driver's license 5-year anniversary, which is coming up this month, needing a driver's license renewal, which I think is such a clever and, fun way to tease her next album. It's definitely coming this year. I heard one person say they thought the album was scrapped and she was starting over. Maybe she did, but I mean, she's going to have been 3 years. I think that Olivia is going to deliver again this year. Birdie, I almost wasn't going to put on this list, and I would put her higher, but the reason why she's so low is because I don't think there's a very strong likelihood of it happening. But I did want to include Birdie on this because it will also be 3 years since she last put out a record. And I, would hope that she's been working on new music in the interim. Again, I mean, maybe she just continues to do maybe a single or some soundtrack stuff. She did a collaboration with another artist, Honan Ford, this year, which was beautiful, but it was just a droplet. So I'm not sure, but I mean, Birdie's not going to stop anytime soon. So I'm anticipating a new album from her this year, if not next year. Harry Styles is one of the biggest, most anticipated comebacks of 2026. I still believe, even though I have no real evidence to support this, that he might have actually come back sooner if Liam Payne hadn't passed away. Speaking of One Direction, I forgot to mention Louis Tomlinson is also releasing an album, I believe on the 23rd of this month, January. Completely forgot. I knew there was someone else coming. I think that's the same day as Agnes. So shout out to that. But, this is Louis Tomlinson's release, as well as a potentially Harry Styles' upcoming release, are going to be the first former 1D member album releases since Liam's death. And I wouldn't be surprised if, that was a big reason why he took a little longer to get this campaign started. I mean, it hasn't really started even yet, but I do think it's going to come out this year. I do think, that's like that music video he put out, which was sort of like a swan song to the last tour, was like the perfect bookend to signal we're entering a new era very soon. Katy Perry is probably going to put out her 7th studio album. Pretty quick turnaround after 147, but talking about a career nosedive, I think Katy kind of does need to do an album soon, but not with Dr. Luke. And at least Band-Aids, the lead single, presumably, which came out in November, was not produced by him. So I think that at least Katy may finally be rising a little bit more out of the controversy to deliver an album that maybe hopefully does not have his involvement, because it was really tough defending her with 147, which was also her weakest album yet. I hope that whatever her 7th studio album ends up being, I hope it's a step up in quality. Delta Goodrem, the Aussie pop star that has disappeared for quite a minute. Her last album was in 2021. She has taken longer and longer breaks, but I mean, I predicted her for last year, but I'm really hoping she comes this year. It's about damn time. She released a song back in 2023, I think. But I don't know if that song is still attached to anything or if we're starting over. But I really, really hope we see more Delta this coming year. Emily Sandé has confirmed that she has been working on new music over the last year. She shared, being in the studio quite a bit on her social media. And she's pretty consistent. I definitely think her last album was in 2023. We will be seeing and hearing from the most soulful Scottish singer there is. Hilary Duff, Luck or Something Like It is the one confirmed album release on this list. And she comes in just under the top 10. Mature was such an exciting and refreshing single for her to release, and I am extremely anticipating and excited for what the album in February will give us. It's looking like it's going to be a little short, but I'm just amazed we're getting new Hilary Duff music. Wasn't sure it was going to happen. Yona Lee of I Am I, Who Am I fame. I think that she will give us her 4th self-titled album under the Yona Lee moniker, a follow-up to her 2024 album, Close Your Eyes. I would presume will come out next year. She has talked about working on more new music, as well as wanting to go again on tour. So she's been pretty consistent with about every other year putting out bodies of work now. So who's to say that pattern's going to stop now? Even though she does have a child, that hasn't stopped her creative output in the last couple years, which is quite impressive. Melanie Martinez says that we are not only getting one album, but 2 next year. that they're going to be a sort of duopoly. They're going to be sort of a yin and yang kind of duo. And I believe that maybe it was like hinted at, one was going to be very dystopian and the other very utopian. And I think that's a very interesting concept to run with. And so we may be getting very well fed for Melanie Martinez fans out there in 2026, hopefully with full accompanying visuals, because Portals, unfortunately, was done pretty dirty in that department by her label. Beyonce probably is going to release Act 3 sometime this year. My thought and gut is that it's actually going to be towards the end of the year. The only reason I have to believe that is because she released Act 2 in the spring, late winter. She released Act 1 in the middle of summer. So why not change it up and release Act 3 in September, October? It just makes each act kind of separate and unique in that regard. But that would also mean the longest gap between acts, and I'm sure that would be kind of difficult for Beyonce fans, but rest assured, I think Act 3 is coming. And also, I think that the rock-inspired sound is very much a rumor that has a lot of merit. Ellie Goulding should be releasing her 6th studio album this year. I'm extremely excited, especially because the lead single, Destiny, that came out in November, is a lot more musically inspired and introspective than any of the stuff that she did on her last record, which she even admitted recently she felt was kind of AI generated, which I thought was kind of interesting, because when that album came out, that was in the back of my mind, that some of these songs, did not feel like there was much soul to them. She's always kind of been a little bit more of just a mainstream by the numbers pop artist these days, but I really hope that she can maybe get back into the halcyon and lights of it all, just a smidge more. Avril Lavigne, I don't know if I have that much confidence in saying that she'll release her 8th studio album this year. But I mean, it'll have been 4 years. We're approaching the 4-year anniversary of Love Sucks. I would hope that she's at least working on something. She put out a greatest hits album last year. Maybe, again, maybe she does a soundtrack. I don't know, but I'm feeling pretty confident, even if it's at the end of 2026, that Avril will return to us. Lana Del Rey. This is probably the longest we've ever gone without a Lana Del Rey record since her career began. Her last album came out in March of 2023, which we are coming up on the 3-year anniversary of. Lana was so consistent with album releases for almost a decade. For her to take this long, it's somewhat expected. Artists have got to slow down at some point. I respect her for that. It happened to Ariana Grande. It'll happen to Taylor Swift at some point. So I'm glad she took a healthy break. She got married down on the bayou. But is this upcoming album really called Stove? It was originally going to be called Lasso. Then it changed to The Right Person Will Stay. And we even got a date that was supposed to be last May, but that got scrapped. And now the album is reportedly, although this might be old news by now, called Stove, and it is a Americana folk country record. I have mixed feelings about all of that information. The album title, most of all. Leave it to Lana to sort of make an album title like Stove very romantic. I think she could pull it off, but I have a lot of questions. It's a very strange album title, and I think The Right Person Will Stay. How are you going to give that up for something like that? That title has just so much more emotional weight. But trust in her madness. I really do think Lana will come back this year. If she doesn't, I don't know what's going on. Evanescence has been gone for a minute, but they have been cranking out singles. Talk about doing the soundtrack circuit. They gave 3 soundtrack singles this year. The Ballerina song with Halsey, the song for that one video game in Afterlife, and then they put out another song for the Ballerina soundtrack, this time as a band. They've been working and been on tour, and they have another tour coming up. And there's actually a chance I might actually see them on tour next year, which is very exciting. But Amy has been basically confirming on social media that their fifth studio album, not counting Synthesis, is coming very soon. I would think sometime probably around spring, summer of this year. Very, very excited for that. Sarah Bareilles has not released a album in a minute. Now she did put out some songs for a Apple TV special in 2021 or no, 2020. That's still a little while ago. But her last album was in 2019, Amidst the Chaos, and I really, really hope we get her fifth studio album this year. All I have to confirm that is she did say she was writing new music on an Instagram interview I saw, and she said the theme of the album was grief. And I was like, looking at what's going on in 2025, I feel that. um, Now, this next artist is one most of you haven't probably heard of, but I wouldn't normally put on this list because I've always wanted them to come back, but I never thought it was going to happen because they have not released an album in 20 years. However, the New Age Celtic fairy instrumentalist musician, Gary Stadler, actually reached out to me this past year because he saw a review I did of his first album, which you can check out on my channel, Fairy of the Woods. I always meant to review his later records, never got around to it. May end up doing that, especially if we see new music coming. But he basically confirmed that he has been actually recently getting back into music. He took a minute, very much a minute, away, and like I said, it's been 20 years since his last record. But could we see a Gary Stadler album, his seventh, finally come 20 years later in 2026? That would be one of the greatest blessings this year could give. And I also was given the privilege of listening to a finished song that he sent me for potentially an album of his. And I will say, I am extremely excited. We'll see, it may still be it might still be a bit, maybe the album won't come out this year, but the fact that he's in the studio at all is very exciting. I mean, I really, really hope we do actually get some music released eventually from this. Another artist that has been taking a bit of a hiatus and also very not well known, but I do spotlight on this channel, I've reviewed all three of their records, are the Green Children, and more importantly, Milla Sund, who has actually recently seemed to want to make a transition to having a stage name of Milla Faye, potentially going solo, although Marlo was always her producer. I feel like they're always going to still want to work together, so I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. So maybe it's the Green Children's fourth album, maybe it's Milla's first solo record. Whatever it is, they confirmed on Facebook it should be coming next year. We'll see. I'm still a little nervous. They've admitted that things have gotten in the way and that it's taken longer than they anticipated to get new music out. But they're an independent group who, doesn't, have the benefit of, the money and resources of these bigger artists. So it takes time to make the beautiful dreamlike music that they do. And I would be so, so happy if they came back. I think that's more likely than Gary, but if they both came this year, I would be absolutely ecstatic. The final two I'm feeling pretty confident on, and they are pretty big hitters. We have Björk with Björk's 11th studio album, rumored to be coming sometime in 2026. And our biggest confirmation of that came with the announcement of Echolalia, which is an installation that is going to be in Reykjavik starting this May all the way through September, and that is going to have installations on Fasora, I think all of her previous records, including her new upcoming one that is still being worked on, but some publications have already heard some music from. There's a lot of directions pointing. I mean, Fasora came out in 2022, so 4 years, that's a decent, average life cycle of a Björk project. I think that there's good reason to believe, though it may be later in the year, that we do get Björk's next album. As to what it will sound like and the concept, I'm still clinging to that harp and water theme that I saw someone throw out there that maybe it was directly attributed to a Björk quote. I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe I dreamt it. I don't know. It's what I would most like because I think, she's been sort of focusing on different instruments ever since basically her a cappella album in Medulla. Every album has sort of revolved around a different instrument. Her last album was the oboe. Utopia was the flute. Volnicura was the strings. Volta was the trumpet. I mean, I'd be very interested to see if there was a harp as the central focus of this upcoming record, or maybe piano. She hasn't done so much with just piano, and that would also be very interesting as well. But I also love the idea of an album themed to aquatic life and water. I think that would be a very interesting, change up from the very earthy Fasora. My most anticipated album this year, I feel like is 100% coming, and I am so excited, is Madonna. She should give us her first record on Warner Records, which, her first since Hard Candy. She's been on Interscope Live Nation for her last 3 records, but she has finally reverted back to her home record label, to put out what is presumably going to be Confessions Part 2. It might have a different title. I still think Confessions on a Dance Floor Part 2 is most likely going to be its title, but it still might be something else. But it has been all but confirmed by Madonna herself, by so many sources, that this album is meant to be a 20-year anniversary answer to Confessions from 2005. And the album was actually originally supposed to come out around November, the actual 20th anniversary, but got delayed due to various factors. I would expect the lead single to come very soon, as possibly even by the end of the month, although I'm feeling a little bit more February with an album release sometime in April. That is my gut feeling, May at the latest. But I am extremely excited for a Stuart Price produced dance record from Madonna in 2026. Sign me up. Now, of course, that's all well and good, but where is my homegirl from Ireland, who I always talk about as my most anticipated of the year? We do need to talk about Enya. Now, 2025, I was the most confident I had been in quite a while that she might actually finally return. It was going to be 10 years since her last record in 2015, and I think I clung a little bit too much to the theory and pattern that every 5th year of a decade, she released a project, going all the way back to 1995 with The Memory of Trees. 2005, we got Amarantine. 2015, we got Dark Sky Island, which means 2025 was the first 5th year of a decade since 1985 that we did not get an Enya release. So she's breaking her pattern, but I also kind of felt like 11 years felt like more of the kind of gap I could see her taking rather than just the standard 10. So could it be that Enya comes back this fall? It most certainly will be in the fall if she does. I don't see Enya deviating from her traditional release pattern of releasing right before the holidays. However, there was some very tragic news out of Ireland this past September that I think had all Enya fans deeply worried about the future of her career. Enya's longtime friend and producer on all of her records from the beginning, Nicky Ryan, passed away at, I believe, the age of 79. If I'm not mistaken, he was in his late 70s, so he was a bit older than Enya. That is a tremendous blow, not only to Enya personally, but to her actual professional work as a musician. Enya has basically said that there is no Enya without Nicky. And Roma, of course. Roma is the lyricist who writes all the lyrics for Enya's music. Enya is the composer and very much a multi-instrumentalist on most of her tracks. Nicky Ryan does the production. Nicky's passing could spell the actual end of Enya's career. Does she find a way to have someone else produce her upcoming music? Did Nicky and Enya and Roma have quite a lot of music already recorded by the time of his death? I hope to think that they've been working on an album for the last couple of years. Enya is notoriously slow in recording music. And usually it's the quality, warrants the long wait. But they're all getting older. Roma is definitely in her 70s too. And Enya, although she's the youngest, I worry. Does she have the hunger? Does she have the need? Financially, of course not. But the creative spark, the desire, she's a very introspective person. And as she gets older, she probably less and less wants to do all of the promotion that comes with an album release. Traveling the world, doing all of that, I just don't know. I mean, what would it look like? I always kind of thought that maybe at the very least we might get some sort of swan song compilation live album of some final live performance of a lot of songs set to orchestration, maybe with one or two new songs attached. Maybe we get that, but does it come this year? Do we get one last, original Enya record before that farewell? I really, really hope so. But I've got to be honest, if we do get one more Enya record, I am almost certain it is going to be her last, at least in terms of it being all new material. Like I said, there is the possibility of one last greatest hits, one last re-recording project with live orchestration. There is the possibility of that. But I think that as far as, her oeuvre, there's probably at best one more record left in her. Does that album come out in 2026? I mean, I would hope so. Or maybe it's still 1 or 2 years away. But if we don't hear anything by a year or two from now, I'd be very concerned. By the end of this decade, I just see Enya fully retiring. And it's just the sad reality of her going into her 70s. I just don't see her in her 70s, especially with Roma being then in her 80s and Nicky Ryan long past. I just don't see her continuing. And it's very sad, and it makes me happy that Madonna and Björk are not slowing down. Another artist that, I didn't mention, but I do think is releasing a new album this year is Tori Amos. And she's a bit younger, but there are artists that are still kicking all these years. And I'm glad and I hope they don't retire, because Kate Bush kind of did. And I really wish she'd come back, especially given the hype around Stranger Things. You would think that would maybe give her a little bit of a nudge to be like, you know what, maybe I should work on a new record. I actually do hope maybe Kate Bush has one left in her still as well, but we'll see. I'm not feeling as confident about that this year. But as far as Enya goes, it was I feel kind of selfish being like, oh, I'm more upset because are we going to get another Enya album than I am about the passing of Nicky Ryan himself. But Nicky was such an integral portion of those records. I'm very worried that Enya just couldn't emotionally bring herself to work with anyone else. I mean, she seems like someone who has that kind of emotional attachment that is very, very severe and intense. And I've heard some people float around. There's a programmer that they've worked with for a while now that could easily step in and do the production, especially if Nicky already did quite a bit for this upcoming record. My hope is that Enya would look at the music and say, I can't not release this. In tribute to his memory, we have to finish this project. I would hope it's what Nicky Ryan would want. But it's a very sad and, difficult thing to kind of wonder. I worry that it is just the final nail in the coffin, and maybe Enya was already kind of feeling not that inspired anymore anyway. Maybe she feels like she's put out everything she possibly could. It wouldn't surprise me to hear her say that. And I know some people might complain and say that, well, yeah, Enya's kind of had her moment. Her music, post, Day Without Rain has been subpar. I would somewhat agree and also somewhat disagree with that. I think she's had some real gems in her more recent records, but it's tough. It's tough to see an artist you love age, and it breaks my heart to think about obviously the unthinkable of Enya, being in poor health and passing away, God forbid. But losing Nicky, it just really solidified that there's an era of music that is dying, and it was just a very emotional, hard hitting moment, and one of the most emotional celebrity deaths for me in 2025. And believe me, there were a lot. It was a rough year. So, any Enya fans out there, I don't know. I mean, her sister said years ago she was working on a record, but things can change. I think she's definitely been in the studio since COVID, but is anything going to come of it? And is she going to get back into the studio after mourning the loss of her longtime friend and collaborator? I just don't know. I can't say with any certainty. I think it could go either way. Um, I don't want to give up hope if we don't hear anything in 2026. I'd say there's still at least one, maybe two more years of that window. But then I think that window is going to close as she gets closer to 70. I think that chance of her coming back, I don't think she's going to be like Cher and doing stuff at almost 80 years old. God bless Cher. I'm glad she gave us that Christmas album 2 years ago. She finally decided to promote it on SNL. That was kind of random. I was like, we're not getting new Cher music right now, right? Like, there's no way. But she's still kicking and doing it, even if it's lip syncing. She deserves it. But yeah, we'll see. But I mean, she's my biggest hope. My biggest hope. Now, I'll just throw out a couple other names. There are a bunch of artists that I do think could release next year. Sam Smith, I would be very surprised if he didn't release next year. I think there's a good chance that Jackie Evancho will put out another record. It may be more covers like her last Joni Mitchell one, or it might be more like the EP she put out in 2024 of original material. I'm sort of leaning more towards that. I think Jackie is wanting to fully go into original singer-songwriter territory. I do think Lizzo may still give us another album, but she did also put out that mixtape last year, and that may end up being what the album is. I don't know if she's still going to put out that proper album and something else other than that mixtape in the near future. Remains to be seen. I think Billie Eilish possibly at the end of the year could come back. Robin has been teasing. That's definitely going to be happening. She recently put something on her website that called Sexistential. And I'm just like, girl, if you don't name your album that, I'm going to be so freaking mad, because Sexistential is one of the most genius album titles I've ever heard. And Robin, you better take it. Dopamine is a banger, and I am extremely excited because I was a little lukewarm on Honey. So I'm hoping I like this upcoming Robin album a little bit more. But I think a new Robin album is coming soon. And Miley Cyrus, I think we're going to get a record from her. She basically confirmed it last year. She's just on this creative spree, and she wants to, maybe it's going to be very different from Something Beautiful. We're not sure. But I could see, even if it's towards the end of the year, her putting out another project. Also, something to look forward to is presumably some sort of 20th anniversary live performance celebration, I'm not sure what, of Hannah Montana coming this spring. Very interested to see what that might be. Lil Nas X, I really hope that we get the full Dream Boy album, but I don't know what's going on with Lil Nas. He had that arrest recently. We did get the EP days before Dream Boy, so if that's all we end up getting for that whole concept, then I guess it's better than nothing. But maybe we still get that Dream Boy record he's been teasing for 2 years now. There's a possibility for Kelly Clarkson. We'll see. I think, Halsey, I know her record label is not wanting her to work right now. They're not funding her. I think Halsey's going to probably be struggling and trying to go independent before she puts out new work. I think that Jennie has confirmed she's working on new music from Blackpink. Blackpink, the band itself, has said that they're going to put out an album. We don't know when it's coming, but it will probably be either an EP, a mini album, or something at some point in 2026, because they're not going to just not do something with Jump. I mean, that song was just so huge. it's going to be attached to something, most likely a mini album sometime this year. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, those are the big ones. There's a possibility for Christina Aguilera. I mean, never say never. I'd really love for Susan Boyle to return. I mean, she only ever did covers, but come on, Susan. It's been, it's been like 10, no, it's been like 8 years, or no, 7 years since her last album. Even though that did kind of feel like a swan song, I would love to see her come back. So yeah, no, we could have a busy 2026. I also saw that Bruno Mars is gearing up to release new music. Bruno is going to be putting out an album for the first time since 2016. Um, if you don't count the Silk Sonic collab album. So, I mean, that's something. No Britney Spears. Again, I think Britney is, if she's ever coming back, it's still a ways away. And of course, there's always really wonderful surprises, which of course, I'm always excited about. Always new artists to discover. But speaking of new artists, let's talk about Eurovision. So this is going to be the point of the video where if you're not interested in Eurovision, totally, you can leave at this point. But I felt it was important for me to discuss what's been going on with the 70th edition of Eurovision that is going to be held in Vienna, Austria this May. If you follow my channel, you know that I've been covering Eurovision pretty, consistently for the last 5-6 years, since 2019. Well, 2018, it was the first time I covered it on this channel. I'm just going to get right to it, and this might be upsetting, but hopefully you can understand. As of right now, I am not planning on covering Eurovision 2026. My reasoning, I thought long and hard, and my reasoning, I don't think that it is right or just for the continued participation of Israel in the contest, given all of the geopolitical events that have transpired. I also more glaringly think it is very hypocritical of the EBU to not punish Israel over things that they were so quick to punish Russia and Belarus over 4 years ago. I do not love how they handled the vote that ended up not being a vote, but like a recommendation that made it feel as though they were trying to consider whether Israel will be banned. But I also kind of felt like that was never going to happen. And also, I am just so upset that we lost 5 countries because of this decision. 5 wonderful countries that have sent wonderful songs to Eurovision each year, the Netherlands being the biggest and heaviest hitter. The Netherlands also has beef with the EBU over the Joost Klein incident in 2024, so I am not surprised that they are out. But we also have lost Spain, Slovenia, Ireland, and Iceland. I was really hoping that Belgium, they were on the fence, but then they ultimately decided to participate. I was really rooting that they would also join the boycott, but alas, it is only 5 countries. But 5 countries is 5 countries too many to be losing for the 70th anniversary of this contest. I think that it is extremely regrettable that the EBU is allowing the contest to have the fewest number of participants since the semifinals were created in the middle of the 2000s. 35 at this point confirmed because of one country. And I also think that, I will say this, I think that Israeli Eurovision fans should recognize that Eurovision is never going to let them win this contest, not for a long time. Why bother participating if you're going to be in a rigged contest? They have enforced new rules on voting methods, number of times you can vote per payment method. They have, adjusted some rules that are supposedly going to help ease some of the broadcasters' concerns around fraud and fairness in particularly the popular vote, the public vote aspect of the ceremony. They have also chosen to, I believe, not censor crowd booing during any performance this time around, or ban any flags of countries that are not participating in the contest, like they have for the last two editions. These are nice little window dressings, band-aids on a gaping hole that has been wrought into this contest. So many fans are heartbroken over what Eurovision has allowed to fester in itself. So many fans I have seen have become so distraught and heartbroken over the decisions that the EBU has made regarding Israel and the geopolitical situation there. I know that I am going to presumably get some comments, and I'm just going to say this straight up. The one benefit of being a very small YouTube channel is I can read all those comments. It don't take very much time, and I can delete them if I want to. So if your comment does not have any ounce of nuance or thoughtful engaging with the conversation and is instead inflammatory, just bogus claims that are extremely incendiary and baseless, your comment will get deleted. I hate having to say that, but I just have to, because unfortunately, when I was covering the 2025 contest, I had people, unfortunately, it is a very unfortunate conversation that I wish we did not need to have. I wish that we didn't need to be talking so much about one country. And I, also, again, will assert that I think Azerbaijan is also very shady, and I'm not sure they should be allowed to participate either. And if this helps you feel any better, I would be okay with possibly even banning Ukraine, because at the end of the day, I do think Ukraine is possibly still riding a little too much sympathy in the public vote due to them being at war with Russia currently. If the EBU really wanted to stand on principle, they could just say, without being super targeted towards one country, that they are going to no longer allow any country that is in serious armed conflict with another, whether that country participates in Eurovision or not, to participate until the conflict is over. And of course, we do have a ceasefire, but the conflict is far from over. The repercussions of what was done to the Palestinian people, the mass displacement, the destruction of homes and cities, it's going to take decades to possibly ever mend and recoup. And Netanyahu is still in power. And I feel the same way about Netanyahu as I do about Putin, as I do about Erdogan, as I do about Xi Jinping, as I do about Kim Jong-un, as I do about Nicolas Maduro. They are all really harmful dictator, authoritarian, or authoritarian-leaning, warmongering, pathetic men. Pathetic men. And I'll leave it at that. So at the end of the day, I really hope that Eurovision can survive this. Quite a few content creators that I hugely love and respect have chosen also to opt out of covering the contest. They pointed out something that I think is also another reason for me not wanting to contribute. The metadata of uploading content promoting Eurovision, it still helps Eurovision, in searches, in clicks, in engagements, and it's not exactly helpful when you're trying to boycott something. Now, that being said, I fully support people who are fully boycotting, but I am still planning on watching the contest at this point. That may change, but that's a little bit of my happy medium. I can't bring myself to completely divest as a viewer. I hate to say it. I mean, I won't pay or submit any money to vote. I have never done that, though. That's more of a me being broke thing, and also not understanding how to do it. That's more of that. And also not being able to until recently with the rest of the world vote, being an American. But I do plan on still, seeing what the playlist looks like, listening to some of the songs, if not all of them. But I don't plan on putting out any videos discussing it. I mean, it's just not worth it to me. I would be going over the same thing over and over again. So I just wanted to put it out now to those who are interested. I know some people may disagree. We all, if you disagree, that's fine. But this is how I feel I have to go forward. It's heartbreaking, and I hope that in 2027 we are not having the same conversation. That's my biggest hope, because the downfall of Eurovision right now is just truly heartbreaking. I just I'm really worried about the reputation, and this is the 70th anniversary, and this is what we're dealing with. I just it's very upsetting. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe eventually it might be just a couple countries competing again, like it was in the beginning. I don't know. Eurovision may be transforming into something else, and we may have to acknowledge that and make peace with it. Or maybe it can claw itself back into better graces, with so many of the fandom. But right now, this is just the recourse I have to take. And, at the end of the day, I don't get that many views on those videos anyway. So it's not like much people, it's what it is. But it's sad. I just won't be covering it. And that's just that. But I'm going to focus on, hopefully there will be some seriously fun, big albums to cover. I mean, the albums that are in like the top 10 that I discussed on the anticipation list, I will be reviewing, or I do plan to review if they come out. Ones below that, it's like we'll see how busy I am and if I care enough about the record once it's released. But yeah, I mean, I also want to talk more about movies this year. I've got, stay tuned, an entire recap of all the movies I watched in 2025 for the first time. That video is going to be coming out in the next 2 weeks. That is always a doozy to make, but I've been doing it now for several years. So that'll be coming soon. And then, yeah, we've got award season, Oscars. I will be making a video about that, even though I don't get much engagement over that content on this channel, but I don't care. I just still want to make it. This channel, at the end of the day, it's just stuff I want to film. I'm not really too concerned. If I was, I would have given up on this channel a long time ago. So if you've stuck with me through all this, and if you stuck through me in this video, thank you so much for being, if you're new, if you've been with me just for another year sticking with this channel. I know I'm kind of sporadic with uploads. It's never going to be quite what it was with consistency, but I'm hoping to still, at least once a month, check in, at least, I've got some other ranking videos I want to do. Definitely some more song tier ranking videos for sure this year from some big artists. I think I'm going to finally do the Taylor Swift one, but I might wait until we see if we get anything for the 20th anniversary of debut. I think it would be great because it'll be 20 years of Taylor Swift. It'll be the perfect time to do a song ranking, which I've never done for her on this channel. That'll be a doozy. And of course, we should be hopefully getting a Taylor Swift wedding this year, although it could still be next year. I'm not sure yet. But I think that's where she should be focusing. Focus on getting that family settled, Taylor, and maybe another tour, but I don't think it's going to be this year either. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you have all had a wonderful holiday and that 2026 brings much more love and light than maybe the previous year did, and that you all have a wonderful, blessed day. I'll see you all in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace, love, and light. Bye.